This is the last video in the little tutorial about using the inventory system. Now we're actually going to apply the scripts that we've made to the objects that we have. We're going to make a custom script for each use, and this is where all that upfront setting up in the inventory manager and the collectible script is going to come in very handy. So we're going to make one custom script to check and, if we can, kill the rat, and one to open the door. So I'm going to go ahead and create those scripts. Kill rat and open door. Both of these scripts need to have a reference to the inventory manager and their respective pop-up script, because these are going to go on the trigger areas. I'm going to steal that directly from my collectible. This whole section here, Control C, and in my kill rat script, paste it. In my open door script, paste it. For insight on what this all does, you can watch the last video. Effectively, these are just links to these other two scripts that are already made. For each one, we're going to be checking if the pop-up dot e pressed is equal to true. This is checking if the user has gone into the pop-up area and they've pressed E. If it is the case, in this open door, we're going to check if they have a key, and in kill rat, we're going to be checking if they have the axe. So pop-up dot E pressed true. So we'll do the rat first. If the inventory manager dot check for item, and we've got to pass it the name of the item we're checking for. I'm going to be checking for an axe. Remember that this is going to return me either a true or false value, so if it is true that there is an axe, I want to kill the rat. Now I have a script made specifically for that in the pop-up. So I can write pop-up dot deactivate pop-up. Remembering that that turns off the trigger area and deletes the child, which in this case is the model. Just so that I know this has happened, obviously I'll see the rat disappear, I'm also going to write debug dot log rat killed. Now it could be the case that you go up and you try to kill the rat without having an axe. If that is the case, that'll trigger an else statement. We're simply going to get the pop-up and update its output, which was called output dot text to equal I need a weapon to kill this thing. For the open door, it's going to be very similar. I'm going to be checking if the inventory manager, and I'm going to be checking for an item. In this case, I'm going to be checking for an item called key. If it is returned true that that does exist, I want to remove the key. I'm going to be using it. Inventory manager dot remove item key. So it will be removed from my list and I can't use it again. If I don't have the key, I'll give the user a hint to let them know by changing the pop-ups output text to say I need to find a key to unlock this. Now, after all of this, I want to set E pressed to equal false. The reason I'm doing this is because I don't want this stuff to keep being checked. I want it to be checked once, then it's going to be false. I need to press E again to re-perform this check. I'm going to do it the exact same in OpenDOOR. My game manager last time had this fake item. I'm going to get rid of that by just deleting the fake item and changing this to none. Now, rat trigger is going to have my new script called kill rat, and door trigger is going to have my new script called open door. Now I'm going to perform 3 checks, walking up to the door and pressing E, leaving, going back. That's working. Now I'm going to try to kill the rat without an axe. I need a weapon to kill this thing. Now I'm going to go and collect the axe. I have it in my inventory, I can see the sprite. Go up to the rat, and I have successfully killed it. Now notice I do still have the axe. That's because in this game you can kill it, and it doesn't get rid of the axe from your inventory. If I wanted to, I would call remove item instead of just check for item. The next thing I want to do is after the rat dies, I want that to also spawn a key here. So I will need to set up a prefabricated item to spawn at a location once the rat dies. So to set up a prefab item, I'm going to create the model first of a key, dragging that key to my scene. Now this is a little big. The key I'm going to reduce in size quite a bit. There we go. That looks like a reasonable sized key. Now I'm just going to figure out where I want it to spawn so I can jot down the location for myself. I want it to spawn where the rat was, maybe just behind the rat, once it's dead. Now, I want this to be gold, so I'm going to grab this texture, this image that I have, and drag it directly onto the key. You can now see that it's made it gold. I've also made this material here that I can change the attributes of. So I can change its smoothness, its metallic obviously is at max, to make it look different. So there's the key. The key needs a few things. Firstly, a trigger, so I'll select the key, create a sphere, increase its size. Remember, this is going to be invisible. There we go, that's pretty big. And I'm going to delete its renderer and and mesh. Alright, so just like all the rest, key is going to go inside of key trigger as a child object. And key trigger is going to get our 2 scripts for being a collectible and having a pop-up. And the message is just going to say press E to pick up, similar to the axe. The item name is going to be a key. The item sprite is one I preferred earlier. Right here. Now, this is in the scene already. I don't want this to exist. Not until I tell it to. So I'm going to jot down these values here. Down here. Key trigger, drag this whole thing down here. I'm going to rename this to key prefab. I can delete it out of my scene. I don't need this anymore. Key prefab has all of everything that we set up. If we double click on it, we can investigate the prefab's items. But I'm going to make this spawn or instantiate once the rat dies. I need to set up two things. Rat script. One is going to be a public reference to the game object I want to spawn, which is a key. Another one is going to be a public float x rat spawn x, a public float spawn y, and of course a public float spawn z. So just after the rat is killed, but before I deactivate everything, I want to instantiate this object. I can do that by writing the keyword instantiate. An instantiation needs three things. It needs to know an object to spawn, position to spawn it, and a rotation to spawn it at. The thing I'm going to spawn is the key. The position is going to be a new vector 3 at position x, spawn x, spawn y, and spawn z. And for the rotation, I'm going to say quanterion.identity. This just means the default rotation of the object. So I'll save that and go back to Unity. I'll spell key correctly. After I remove the key item, I'm going to use the pop-up scripts ability to deactivate the pop-up. Now, the rat now needs to know those three things, or two things really, the key, and then the values that I'm going to be spawning this at. Now I have that screenshot from earlier. They were at points -8, were points -8, 0.28, -2.8, and 5.6. So I don't want door trigger to delete the door. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the door out and instead give it a empty child, which is basically going to be a sacrificial lamb. Now what will happen is the door model will stay, but the trigger will still turn off. You may want this to happen in freak instances, such as this. I'll unlock the door, the trigger's off, it's not opening again. Ideally something would have happened, like an animation played, or maybe a new room, or I just teleport to a new room in this instance. But that is it in its entirety. You'll notice all these things that have turned off throughout the course of this little gameplay, leaving only really the game manager, which is keeping track of all my items. I only have an axe left, myself, the door model, which is no longer a part of the trigger, and then the room itself and the canvases.